Okay, so what if I told you that blackberry sitting in your fridge, the big, sweet, juicy one, what if I said it's less of a fruit and more of a piece of high-tech hardware? Seriously, it's been designed, engineered, and grown using methods that honestly look more like a science lab than a farm. Let's get into it.
So just look at the difference here. On one side, you've got the OG blackberry, the wild one. Kind of small, pretty seedy, and it grows on these crazy thorny stems. Plus, it goes bad like super fast. But then, look at the other side. That's the one you buy at the store. It's huge, plump, juicy, it grows on these nice, smooth, thornless stems, and it's been engineered to stay perfectly fresh for weeks. And the flavor? Always sweet. This isn't just a lucky upgrade, folks. This was all done on purpose.
Right, so that leads to the obvious question. How on earth do you get from that to this? How do you make that leap from a wild, scrappy berry to this perfectly engineered super berry? Well, it's an incredible story of science and, honestly, some serious cleverness.
First things first, it all starts with the plant's DNA. Forget the farm for a second. This begins in a lab. We're talking about building a better blackberry from the ground up, genetically speaking.
So these traits didn't just appear overnight. This is the result of decades of work, a lot of it pioneered by the University of Arkansas. They focused on a few key things. First, thornless stems. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? It makes harvesting way cheaper, and you don't damage the fruit. Then, they bred them for upright growth, which just makes everything easier to manage. But this next one, this is the real game changer. Primocane fruiting. Okay, so a primocane is just the plant's first-year stem. What this means is that growers can get a full harvest in the very first year they plant, not the second. That is huge. It completely rewrites the financial rulebook for starting a blackberry farm.
Okay, so you've got the super plant, but that's only half the battle. To really let it shine, you have to give it the perfect home. And the most radical, mind-blowing step in this whole process is to get rid of the soil. Yeah, you heard me. We're talking about farming without dirt.
And this quote right here, this tells you exactly why. The primary justification for soilless farming is the complete elimination of soil-borne pathogen risks. Think about that. The number one reason farmers make this huge, expensive change is to get away from all the nasty diseases and pests that live in the dirt. It's all about taking back control.
And that control isn't just about diseases. It's also about resources. Just look at this chart. It's wild. Because you're delivering water and nutrients directly to the roots with zero waste, these soilless systems can use up to 90% less water than traditional farming. In a world where water is getting scarcer and scarcer, that's not just a cool feature, it's essential. This is what the future of farming might have to look like. So what does this all add up to? Well, basically, you're taking all the guesswork out of farming. You're no longer gambling with Mother Nature. Is there a surprise frost? Doesn't matter. Hailstorm? Who cares? A drought? Not your problem. You're turning farming into a predictable, almost industrial process. Every berry is the same high quality every single time. And that's exactly what you need for the global export market.
Okay, so how do they actually do it? What does this soilless farming look like? It might sound super complex, but you can really boil it down to a simple 3-step formula.
Think of it like a recipe for the perfect berry. Step 1, you start with your star ingredient, that super plant with the amazing genes. Step 2, you give it the perfect home to grow in, which, remember, is not soil, it's a special engineered material. And step 3, you feed it a 5-star gourmet diet delivered with pinpoint accuracy. All right, let's talk about that perfect home. It's called a substrate, and this isn't your grandma's potting soil. This is a high-tech growing material. The main ingredient is usually something called cocoa peat, which is literally just ground-up coconut husks. They mix that with stuff like perlite to keep it nice and airy. The whole point is to create a perfectly clean, perfectly balanced environment for the roots. It gives them support, just the right amount of water, and plenty of oxygen, all without any of the bad stuff you find in regular dirt.
And now for the gourmet diet. This process has a cool name, fertigation. It's just a mashup of fertilizing and irrigation. Basically, the plant's food is mixed right into the water, so growers can be incredibly precise. They're like chefs, creating the perfect nutrient recipe, and they change that recipe depending on what the plant is doing. So when the plant is just growing, it gets a diet high in nitrogen to build lots of green leaves and strong stems. But then, when it's time to make berries, they change the menu. They cut back on nitrogen and pump up the potassium, which helps make the fruit bigger, sweeter, and better.
So this technology is pretty amazing, right? But it's not just about making a tastier berry.
It's also fueling a huge worldwide business competition. We're talking about a global race for blackberry dominance.
Let's look at the players. First up, you've got the heavyweight champion of production, Mexico. They grow a mind-boggling 250,000 tons of blackberries every single year, and pretty much all of that is heading north to the US and Canada.
Then, across the pond, you have the export king, Spain. They're not growing quite as much, but their export business is worth over $500 million a year. They basically own the European market.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember how a lot of this technology was developed in the US? Well, check this out. The United States is, by far, the biggest importer of blackberries in the world. Almost half. We buy nearly 46% of all blackberries traded globally. That just shows you how massive the demand is. Even with all the domestic farms, we just can't grow enough.
So you've got this huge, hungry global market. It makes you wonder, is there a gap anywhere? Is there an opportunity someone's missing? Well, if you look at the data, the answer is yes. And it points to a really interesting opening.
So where is that gap? Where's the weak link in this global supply chain?
Okay, check out how things work in Europe. The demand in places like Germany and the UK is just off the charts. It's so high that Spain, the #1 supplier, can't keep up. So what do? They actually import a ton of blackberries from Morocco and then turn around and re-export them to their neighbors. It's this weird sweep-around journey for the berries, and it's a huge sign that the market is stretched thin.
And that is the opportunity. Because there's another country sitting right there with the perfect climate, just like Spain and Morocco. And that country is Turkey. It's right on Europe's doorstep. Geographically, it's perfectly positioned to jump in and supply that huge European demand directly. It could completely shake up that inefficient supply chain.
So we've seen the blackberry go from a humble wild berry to a full-on, high-tech product, grown with lab-like precision. It's an amazing journey. And it really leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? As we search for smarter, more reliable ways to feed a growing planet, could the future of farming look less like a sprawling field of dirt and a lot more like a simple bucket of coconut husk?